I'm Dr. Barry. I'm a psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. Today, we are going to talk about the case of Jeremy German. He was a investigative reporter in Las Vegas, and he has a history of doing stories on people involved in organized crime. Like he had a history of being a really good reporter that would get to the bottom of things. And he wrote some stories on a public official named Robert Tellis, and he is currently on trial for, and so I know y'all don't like the word unaliving, but it's like it's a YouTube thing, but yes. So this individual ended up getting so the details are a bit gruesome, so trigger warning here, because the individual was stabbed, and on the day that Robert Tellis was arrested, he like tried to go up to his restroom. They said he had a pretty significant injury on his arm. It seemed as though he had taken some medication, and they were concerned that he might try to unalive himself by a cop, and that he was having thoughts to, another word that I can't use here, but the expert that we're going to get into will, so this video might get demonetized anyway. It is what it is. But that he tried to self-delete. And the defense is going to put up an expert that's going to say, just because somebody, when they're going to be arrested, just because they get suicidal in that moment, that does not mean that they're guilty. That's what this expert is going to try to say. And the prosecution is going to have a great cross of this particular expert. Robert Tellis, he is going to testify. And we are going to cover his testimony as well. This incident happened back in 2022, and there is DNA evidence. There are the sneakers of the individual that was seen pictured out like near the home. There is a lot of physical evidence in this case. And y'all, what Robert Tellis is going to try to explain, it is going to kind of cause some problems. So the picture of the individual I was showing is the victim in this case. The actual defendant, I am going to, you all will see him. Mm, they show him in court a lot, and I have it on the thumbnail as well. So let's first watch this testimony of Dr. Mark Chambers, who, so he's not a practicing psychologist. He is a researcher. He, I think, does some of this testimony and he examines the research, but he is not a clinician. He does not do clinical work. And I'm just making that difference because um, I think the prosecution is going to have some really good questions for him. So this is the end of his just pretty much saying that just because a person has certain thoughts does not mean that they are necessarily guilty, that does not prove guilt. So let's listen to this.
It can get.
I would think so.
Oh, let me just also mention that with Robert Tellis, there is a lot of narcissistic type traits, and we are going to talk about his behavior on the stand, his behavior in the courtroom. He initially wanted to represent himself. He is a lawyer. He was a probate lawyer, like he's a property lawyer, and criminal law is very different. And he's going to try to get things in a way that I personally feel is problematic, and I don't think it's gonna work well with the jury. I and that's where that lack of insight that can happen with narcissism, that is on full display, in my opinion, just my personal opinion, in this case. I cannot diagnose him, I don't know him. Just from what we're seeing, there's some problematic behaviors, in my opinion. All right, let's go.
Is an attempted suicide a reliable indicator of a guilty conscience?
Not necessarily, no.
And is that based upon research?
Yes.
And if you could explain this issue.
So there, in 2011, there was a study published of a very comprehensive research project where they looked at over 27,000 suicides that were committed by individuals who were involved in the criminal justice system. And then they compared those individuals to over 500,000 individuals who were also involved in the criminal justice system but did not commit suicide, so that they could identify.
I also wish he was saying "die by" instead of, so that language is not what we use clinically, but it's my own personal thing that bothers me, but yes.
Well, what makes these people a little bit different than the people who didn't commit suicide? First of all, I think it probably is obvious that individuals who came in with a mental health problem were already at higher risk, because those are the people that typically commit suicide. So it wouldn't necessarily have anything to do with whether they're being charged or not, but it's clear from the research that the stress of being accused of a crime, particularly a severe crime, as I said, can cause people to commit or attempt suicide, whether they're guilty or not. And for the study that I reference, for instance, found that there were people who had gone through the system, were adjudicated not guilty, and after their case was done, they were still at a higher risk for suicide. Other people who had their cases dropped, but had still been accused of this crime, were at a higher risk for suicide. So it was clear from the study that it's more the process of being involved in the criminal justice system, being accused of a crime, that produces the stress that can result in suicide than guilty conscience itself.
And we're just waiting for the prosecutor, because the prosecutor is going to do a really good job, particularly with this case, because there seems to be this desire to be presented well and to come off well and to not look bad. And could that be what's really happening as well? Or to try to then make yourself the victim. Like the prosecutor is going to bring up something really good.
Add part of the problem that even addressing that question of guilty conscience is that, remember I said earlier about what psychology is and it isn't. It's about behavior. It's not about mental processes. So to accurately answer that question, we would have to know what's in the brain of the individual. Guilty conscience, by definition, regards what's going on inside, not what the person is doing. And so there are going to be many, many cases where we don't know if the person is guilty or not. So it becomes difficult to answer that question. But we do know that some people, even after they have been found not guilty by the system, just being involved in the system is a suicide risk.
And just so we're clear, you're not called upon to give testimony concerning the guilt or innocence of Mr. Tellis.
No, of course not.
That's obviously within the purview of this jury and not yours.
Absolutely.
So just so I'm clear on your testimony, if a person attempts to commit suicide after being accused of the crime, that doesn't mean that they probably did it.
It's not a reliable indicator, no.
Innocent people or people that have been.
But what if there's like DNA and pictures, and like what if there's evidence? Ugh. And motive? Okay.
Exonerated of a very serious crime have attempted suicide.
Yes.
You are aware that Mr. Tellis cut his arms pretty severely in this case.
I am.
Did you have an opportunity to discuss this issue with Mr.
I thought
Tellis?
it was a good attempt.
Did he express to you concerns that he had at the time that he did this?
Objection, hearsay.
Was his explanation to you consistent with the studies that you have just referred to?
Objection, hearsay.
So if they had called this expert after Robert Tellis got on the stand and had testified, the expert could testify to this. But so I watch Melanie Little, okay? So I'm not a lawyer. Melanie Little has done a phenomenal job covering this case. Her chat has been very safe and hilarious. And so I'm giving her credit for that one. Uh, I loved watching her analysis of this particular witness.
It's hearsay.
It's hearsay.
Again, you've given testimony concerning these studies where a person gets accused. And as a result,
Okay, so they're not really going to add anything right here, so I'm just going to fast forward past that part. And we're going to get to the cross-examination. Okay, let's go.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can I have some sort of overview of what you reviewed in preparation for your testimony this morning?
Certainly. I was sent the discovery from the case, which I believe included the police report, which essentially documents the investigative process that the police went through when they were assigned to this case. I think that also included some hospital records for the defendant when he was hospitalized immediately after his arrest because of the injuries to his arms. I think I saw some photos that were related to the case, and I was also provided with medical records for the defendant during his time in custody at Clark County Detention Center.
Okay. And in terms of the police reports, you mentioned that you had we call it the OR, the officer's report. Is that what you're referring to?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. How about any witness statements? Have you reviewed any of those?
I believe there were witness statements in there as well, yes.
Okay. And then did you review photographs associated with the case?
As I mentioned earlier, yes.
Video?
Don't recall seeing any video.
DNA reports?
I think I saw some DNA reports,
Okay.
yes.
Reports from like phone extractions, anything like that?
There's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of evidence in this case.
I think I saw a log of some phone records, so I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to.
I'm talking more like the contents of a phone.
I don't recall seeing that, but that doesn't mean I didn't.
Okay. And when was it that you were provided these materials?
It was some time ago. I was retained on this case, I believe, late last year, but I couldn't tell you the exact date.
Okay. And it sounds like you interviewed Mr. Tellis at some point.
I did.
When was that?
I actually interviewed him twice. I interviewed him earlier this year, I believe, and then I also interviewed him last Saturday.
Okay. And in either interview, did you record your conversation with him?
I did not.
Did you take notes?
I did.
Are your notes available?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, do you still have your notes?
Yes,
Okay, so if the court ordered you to provide them, you could do that?
I could, yes.
Okay. And you understand, of course, we don't have them yet.
I haven't been asked for them, no.
Okay. And so if we made that request and the court agrees with us, you'd be able to provide it?
Certainly.
Okay. Besides Mr. Tellis, did you interview any?
He makes so many, that's just, so he does this a lot. He has this, his eyebrows just stay up. His furrow, this part stays wrinkly. This is his state of being. I don't know if he's showing interest. I really want Dr. G Explains to cover this one because, he's the body language expert. Ooh, let's keep going.
Anyone else?
I did not.
How long were the interviews that you conducted with him?
The first interview was about 3 hours, I believe. And then the more recent one was maybe an hour and a half.
Okay. Did you ever administer any tests to him?
I did not.
So it was just interviews, and so you're
And I don't believe he's a licensed psychologist, so I don't know that he could give. I could be. It seemed like he was a research psychologist. I could be wrong. I'm not sure if he's a clinical. I could be wrong. They're using the word psychologist. He might, but it sounds like he doesn't do clinical work. That's what it sounded like to me. Um, I skipped over that part where he went over his history, but yeah.
sort of relying on his description of events.
Well, I mean, I captured his description of events.
Okay. But what he's telling you is his factual version, right?
I would assume so.
Okay. I mean, you don't ever verify that with anybody else. Is that
I
fair?
have not.
Okay. And so you're kind of getting information from a single source?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm getting
And-
information from him for the information that he has available to him.
Okay. And like you could apply, I mean, sometimes are tests administered in order to do psychological assessments of people,
Correct.
and none of those were done
No,
on either occasion?
no.
Okay. And you're not here to tell us anything about events that occurred on December the 2nd of 2022, correct?
Well, no.
No. I mean,
Not
you
on
haven't,
that date. No.
you haven't been to Bronze Circle.
Counsel, I believe it's September 2nd. There was a question, December 2nd, I think.
Oh, I thought I said
Just in the
September. I
second.
apologize. I mean September, if I misspoke.
Yes. No.
I mean, you haven't been to Bronze Circle.
No.
You're not familiar with any of the evidence other than what you read in the officer's report?
Whatever I read in the police report. Yes.
Okay. Now you mentioned that, you sometimes testify like about the reliability of memory and that sort of thing. And that is sometimes used in cases where there is eyewitness testimony to be relied upon.
Yes.
And then sometimes I would assume it's to talk about like children who recall instances of sexual abuse that occurred in the past. They're challenging their memories of that.
That's right.
And so you kind of provide, I guess, context to how they might misremember things.
In some cases, yes.
Okay. And I think you said on direct examination that that going through the criminal justice system just in itself is a stressful event,
That's what he said.
Yes, certainly.
and that correlates with the severity of the charge.
The risk of suicide correlates with the severity of the charge. Yes.
Okay. And then what we're saying is, I think you said it doesn't, I think your words were not necessarily when asked if it was like the suicidality was indicative of a guilty conscience, correct?
Yes.
And so not necessarily to me means sometimes it could be.
Yes.
Sure. Of
Okay.
course.
So there are sometimes
It can be.
people are suicidal because of feeling guilty about the crime they've committed.
I think that's almost certainly true.
Okay. Do you have
Also trying to avoid punishment. I don't think that part came up. It can also be an attempt to avoid being exposed, punishment, those types of things as well.
any kind of information? I don't know if there are studies on that about how often that might be the case.
Well, because as I said earlier, we don't know what's going through a person's mind in most cases unless they tell us.
Right,
People that commit suicide don't usually have much to say.
right. But if
And
you
so-
attempted it, you
Right.
would.
And even when they tell us, we can't always rely on that as being accurate. So it's a very difficult question to address directly through scientific study.
Because people who have attempted suicide may be unreliable narrators about why they did things, right?
Absolutely.
And they may be self-interested when they're relaying events to you,
For sure.
and they may be motivated.
And I looked it up, and he is definitely a clinical and forensic psychologist. I looked it up. I misheard things earlier.
By sort of wanting to avoid criminal responsibility when they're talking to you.
Yes, definitely.
All those factors are always at play when you have someone charged with a crime. Would
They
that be
can
fair?
They can be.
Okay. And do you think there's a correlation of suicidality when people like in high positions in society have what's called like a fall from grace? Do you know what I mean? Being publicly embarrassed?
Yes, I think that that's probably a factor because when I talk about the stress of being accused of a crime, whether or not you did it, there are a lot of factors that play into that. There's family, there's friends, there's finances, there's your employment, but also, as you said, if it's somebody who has a prominent position in society, just the public scrutiny of being accused, whether you're guilty or not, is sometimes inescapable. And we see cases of that all the time where people are accused of a crime, they're tried, they're found not guilty, but that scrutiny, that public scrutiny continues. Not everybody accepts a not guilty verdict, and so it can be very difficult to function in society afterwards.
But that public scrutiny would still exist and the embarrassment would still exist if you were guilty too, right?
Right. Yep.
And if, say, you were the subject of really negative articles that were published countywide, that would be a stressor that someone might experience as well, right?
Correct.
Being accused of inappropriate behavior in the workplace would be a stressor for somebody, right?
I would think so.
Being accused of being a bad manager would be stressful for somebody, right?
Almost certainly.
Okay. And sort of being accused of being kind of incompetent at your job would be a stressor if that was something that was like published to, say, the county.
Yes.
Okay. And those types of things cause stress on individuals that may or may not manifest as suicide, but they're troubling to individuals to experience. Is that fair?
Sure. Some more than others. It's all about personality and experience, but yes, I would think generally that's true.
And when you say some more than others, if they're someone who puts a lot of importance on their role in a particular office or status, it would be more upsetting for that type of person to have maybe negative articles written about them.
I would think so, yes.
Okay. Could I have the court's indulgence?
I thought she did a phenomenal job after the defense was just giving an alternate theory to try to explain that piece of his behavior. And she did a phenomenal job coming back and saying, well, actually, could it just be that the person is not wanting to have this public fall from grace, especially if they were in a position of prominence, especially if they've had all these articles written about them. And I thought she did a really good job having this expert agree with her on those things, because I think it just kind of balances things out for the jury. There are allegations. I don't think the jury is going to be aware of this. I don't think it's going to come up at all. But Robert Tellis has a prior history of DV. And if he is still married, I think in 2020, there was an incident where he allegedly became intoxicated. And the allegation, I think, is that he was being physically aggressive towards his wife. I think the children might have been there as well. And he was arrested for that back in 2020. His behavior seems like it could get erratic at times. Now, y'all, his testimony. What? What? Like, wow. So Robert Tellis, he is going to testify on his own behalf. And he is going to try to explain that he is giving an opinion. And I'm going to play it from here. Melanie Little talked about the fact that there could be a few different reasons why his lawyers aren't going to ask him questions, because even Alec Murdaugh let his defense team ask him questions. Most times, Ali Abulaban didn't just get up and tell a narrative. His lawyers asked him questions and guided his testimony. And so Melanie Little mentioned the fact that lawyers can't suborn perjury. And sometimes if you have a defendant and you're not sure what they're going to say, sometimes what you do is you let them give a narrative. I also saw this. I see him as somebody, Robert Tellis, as somebody who's extremely controlling, to the point of it being like obsessive amounts of control. And there is a personality feature of like an obsessive compulsive, but it's personality. They don't do like excessive hand washing. There isn't that rigidity, but just this obsessive nature. He seems to have this need to control that can also be present in personality disorders like narcissism, where there's this need to control the image, this need to control the narrative, and it's more to protect the ego. And I could see that potentially happening in this case as well. His need to explain things, I don't think even needed to be explained, and him trying to introduce his own evidence, it's just very, very odd. And then him trying to act like, "Whoops, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm making these mistakes. I thought I could say this." All of that is bothersome to me. But let's go on ahead and listen to this.
Mr. Robert Ellis. I've confirmed with Rob Baer, and we're going to ask the court's permission to allow him to testify by narrative.
Okay, that is fine. Anything else before we bring the jury panel in?
Not on behalf of the state, Your Honor.
Okay, we can, Mr. Taz.
So I'm going to fast forward a little. They're going to bring the jury in. He's probably giving them his exhibit list or something. Fast forward.
Stand in front of the panel.
May I get a copy of the papers so I can look at my phone? I don't know.
He wants,
So he's wanting a binder. Okay. And he has notes. We're just going to go.
Did you guys?
all the
Can I have a
exhibits?
copy of that? Or
This is our copy of them.
then that doesn't matter.
State have.
As far as the exhibits go, I mean, if he needs to use the exhibits that we've admitted by stipulation, I don't have an objection to him using those exhibits. It seems like he may have notes though in front of him. So
This was worse to me than Alec because he's going to explain things that didn't need to be explained. And so Alec Murdaugh also tried to say, like, somebody else did this. It wasn't me. He's going to blame a specific company and, like, he's going to name drop specific people. He is going to say all these people had all of this to gain from me not being in my position anymore. But he's going to conveniently ignore like evidence. There is evidence, and I cannot wait for his cross examination. I cannot wait for that.
if he's using those notes, we're gonna need it.
And just so the record's clear, Mr. Tuss, are you intending on referring to your notes in the course of your testimony?
Yes, I am.
Then I'm gonna need a copy of this.
I'm providing the state a copy.
Oh, well, Mr.
Tell us,
Taz is ready.
Does Mr. Draskovich have a copy of the defendant's exhibit list with him that I provided earlier?
I-
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
Whenever
And
you're
Mr. Taz, you have a copy of the exhibit
I,
list?
I've written those exhibit numbers next to my,
Perfect.
so I'm good on that end, I think, as long as I can.
I'm gonna try to fast forward. Like we're not gonna go through every word because this is like we'll get a gist of it, but we're not gonna watch everything. Anybody that wants to watch every single word, please go back and check out the full link down in the description.
Read my writing.
When he's ready for them, I will hold them.
And Your Honor, in order for this to proceed smoothly, when he refers to it, when Mr. Tuss refers to an exhibit, shall either myself or
All
even.
right, very, very please.
Okay, Amy told me that she will make sure the record's clear.
Oh, what happened? Okay, weird. I don't know if he's trying to look humble. So sometimes people with narcissistic traits will know how to fake empathy or fake like guilt or like fake I don't know like they just the emotion that he's showing for me was odd personally. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on for him. But he seems to be trying to make himself low and humble.
Thank you. Will please be seated.
Okay, does the state stipulate to the presence of the panel? Mr. Draskovich?
Thank you.
Yeah, you'll stipulate,
We'll stipulate.
all right? Mr. Draskovich, you're gonna call Mr.
Your Honor,
Tellis.
the defense calls Mr. Robert Tellis.
Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated. Please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Robert Deus. The first name is Robert. The last name is Telles.
Mr. Tellis, the state.
Even the way he says double L, like did you get that? Like double L. Do I need to explain that for you more? To me, he comes off condescending for me. Y'all let me know in the chat if he comes off condescending to you too.
Is going to allow you, I think the court is going to allow you to testify by way of narration. So please tell us. Begin with your story, sir.
Thank you, sir. And so, first of all, and excuse me, I'm obviously a little nervous. This is it's a day I've been waiting for nearly 2 years. You know,
He's saying he's nervous. He doesn't look nervous to me. I think he's likely, and so I don't know what's happening for him. We're all here for my personal thoughts. He seems like excited. He's probably glad to get to set certain things straight. He doesn't seem nervous to me. Not to me personally. And he's gonna say he's gonna give his opinions, and he's gonna be mad that other people got to give their opinions, but he can't give his, and the whole thing is just gonna be, ugh. All right.
this thing's been kind of a nightmare, frankly. And again, I want to thank you for being here.
And so him talking about how much of a nightmare this has been for him, this whole testimony is a perfect example of Darvo for me, where he's trying to deny everything and trying to make himself the victim, and he's blaming it on some other random person. Like I honestly feel like his testimony was worse than Murdaugh, because Murdaugh at least stuck to the actual events and the actual story. Like he's gonna bring up stuff that to me is coming out of left field. I understand he's doing a Hail Mary and he's just trying to say it wasn't me. This was a conspiracy. I personally don't feel that way, but I don't know.
And right now, I want to say unequivocally, I'm innocent. I didn't kill Mr. Gurman. And I've got a lot to share with you all. There's been a lot of testimony, and my concern is making sure that you hear what I think about all these things, and you know what would, you know, the concerns that I have with some of these things that have been brought up. So during my testimony.
So to me, during testimony from the defendant, I don't know that he should be talking about his concerns with other people's testimony. And it was almost like this was more of a closing argument than a testimony to me. I'm not a lawyer, but it didn't feel like somebody talking about what happened on particular days or my alibi, what really happened. This was more just, this is how awesome I was. People couldn't believe how great I was doing the best job, and people didn't like that, so they came after me.
I'm going to be sharing opinions. I know that, you know, folks like Zach Schilling and Mr. Mogg shared their opinions with you. And these opinions were, you know, almost, I guess you could say, argumentative in a sense, right? Basically,
Their opinions were argumentative? What? I can't.
Zach Schilling said, well, you know, I'm an expert on shoes, and, you know, I think that those shoes that the killer was wearing are the same ones that I've seen the Shea is wearing all the time, right? And
I think, so according to Melanie Little, because I missed that testimony, it sounds like The expert said the shoes were from like Ross or Marshall. Let me know in the chat if y'all saw that testimony, because that's what I heard over on Melanie's channel. And when people make jokes, sometimes I can't tell if it's a joke or not. So I took that as that was something the expert actually said. It could have been a joke. I don't know.
He's arguing you that he's an expert and you should believe him. And I think the same goes for Mr. Mock, right? So I think that when I share an opinion with you, someone might say it's argumentative. And when I say something, I guess I specifically mean the state. But I think that when I share an opinion with you, that's my right. And it's your right to decide whether or not you agree with my opinion or not, whether you want to adopt my opinion or not.
So that's why, like, this sounds, Terry, I agree that this sounds more like an argument than actual testimony to the facts. Like, the facts should be the facts. And now we might have different perspectives, but like, this should be testimony about the facts. He's going to just this whole testimony, I think, was pointless. I don't know what the jury got out of any of this. People in the chats that have watched this. So we're only 5 minutes in, probably 2 minutes into him being on the stand. And I'm okay, we'll see how far we get.
So I'm just hoping that, I'm not stopped from sharing with you.
I hope I'm not stopped. Which means I might say or do something that I'm not allowed to say or do, and they might try to stop me from giving my opinion. When actually, like, he's gonna break the rules. He's gonna clearly break the rules for what a witness can and can't do. They're gonna rightfully object as they should.
What I have to say. And I guess right off the bat, I'll share an opinion with you. The medical examiner testified about how Mr. Gurman was murdered. And,
But this is gonna get a little gory, but it's weird. The opinion he's gonna have based on this, because he's gonna immediately contradict what he just said by talking about how great he was and how quickly he learned things on his own. Like, so let's listen to this.
I had to see pictures of Mr. Gurman's body, in preparation for the case. And it's obviously it's ugly. But when the medical examiner testified, that's the first time I'd learned how Mr. Gurman was murdered. Now,
And even him just making eye contact with it. So I feel like he's trying to see, is my story hitting with the jurors? Like, but so of course, like when you talk to somebody, you make eye contact, you're trying to see if, what you're saying is resonating with them or not. But this comes off manipulative for me personally. Now he's on trial. He's supposed to do what he can, but I don't know if this is going to be helpful like he thinks it's going to be helpful to him.
I think it's the way that he was murdered speaks to, I think, something or someone who knows what they're doing. The idea that Mr. Gurman's throat was slashed and his heart was stabbed.
How hard is it to do those two things? But he's opening the door for the jury. Now, like, don't do those things. Nobody go and do those things. But like, he's making it sound like there was some jujitsu, this ridiculous, like you need to have expertise in hand-to-hand combat to do something like that. And I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's true.
I think I don't know if anybody could just do that, right? Without some kind of training, without some kind of expertise. So, and I'm personally not combat trained. I've, and none of that. So it seems to me that when I heard that, I thought, my God, so that's, I guess, one example of like the type of opinion I'll be sharing with you. And I want to also provide relevant facts, the truth, and things that I think are going to tend to disprove a lot of what has been said. And also when it comes to some of the witnesses, some of the documents that I'm going to try to get in are going to kind of go to whether or not they're being truthful. So again, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get those documents into. I guess we'll see.
And his glance over to the prosecution. I am going to speed him up just a little bit. Like I'm going to try 1.25. We'll see how he sounds. So just a heads up, I have sped him up to 1.25.
See how that goes as well. First, I want to kind of go into my background a little bit. So out of high school, I got a job at a small computer store and building computers, that type of thing. And then I got an opportunity to work in IT, right? Information technology, working as a network technician. The .com
He explains some things that don't need to be explained.
crash occurred, and from there I ended up going into property management. And I enjoyed that. I became a leasing agent, then an assistant manager, then a manager. Then I took a strange turn and got into maintenance, fixing stuff inside apartments, that type of thing. And from there, started to get involved in air conditioners. So then I became an HVAC technician, an air conditioning technician. And it was all self-study. Right? I took a course for the EPA certification, which is the license that you're required in order to handle like refrigerant, like Freon, those types of things. But I kind of learned like the basics of air conditioning on my own.
So, sir, you have the ability to learn some things on your own? Something as complicated. So I would need more than a YouTube video to figure out like refrigerant. I'm not good with mechanical stuff. I'm not. Okay. That's why I have AAA. I don't like if they ask me what's wrong with my car, I'm gonna make weird noises. Like it's just like I'm like, I don't know. Like go drive it. Go figure out what's wrong with my car. Uh you seem to have the capacity to learn new things on your own. Okay.
And the only reason I say it is, like going along is like I've kind of developed this analytical mind, right? And so that led to me becoming an attorney. And so then,
But he analyzed this way too much because he's trying to find the perfect out. And I don't think this is as big of a slam dunk as he thinks it is. I personally don't think it is.
that even built more on that analytical mind, where I think about all the things like all the things wrong in this case. And you add to on top of that the fact that I've been sitting in a cell for close to 2 years.
And I don't know if he was supposed to say that. Was the jury aware that he's been incarcerated all of this time? Was he supposed to even say that? Like he's going to get things in that I don't think he would have been able to get in if he had been asked questions. I'm gonna have to look for this. Thank you, Lisa. So pursing his lips is one of his tells. And sometimes I think they talk about that being like trying to hold something back or like, yeah. Wow. I don't.
So I've had a lot of time to think about a lot of these issues. So again, I think I'm going to point out some strange things about this case. But anyway, going back to my background. So I became an HVAC technician. I started working at the College of Southern Nevada. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to name check.
Did you though? Did you not mean to name check that school? I don't believe him that he didn't. I don't believe him that he didn't mean to say the name of that school. Even at 1.25, watching it regular speed, it rolled off his tongue so easily. So easily. Oopsie. I think I skipped ahead, but he's going to apologize for it.
In early 2022, about March 2022, I approached Steve Wolfson. Now, he and I and other elected department heads,
I might have skipped over the fact he did like law school and like during night school. And so he became a lawyer.
have regular meetings and we would coordinate and, elections were around the corner. So we started talking about, what ideas do you have? What ideas do you have? That type of thing. Right. And during one of our meetings, I had mentioned
Melanie Little hypothesized somebody on the jury might have went there. That's what Melanie Little hypothesized, but I don't know.
That I had this concern with this company. About a year before, I had raised the issue with the Attorney General's office, and apparently they didn't see where the wrong was. But the weird thing about that was that they took less than a month for the investigation. And so I don't know if the Attorney General thought, well, we don't get it, we don't see how this is crime or what, but I think about a month later.
So he alleges that there's this private probate company that swoops in and is families aren't getting the money that they're owed. That the house has a kitchen, they're going in, gutting the kitchen so they can get it priced at a lower amount, and then they can sell it for a profit. That's what he's saying. I'm the genius that came in and found this and was encouraging these investors. Now he might, I don't know. I don't know if what he's saying is true or not. I don't think this had anything to do with why he was on it. Because is he gonna explain why he was in the car for like an hour or two with some lady from his job? Because I thought that's what some of the reporting was on. I thought the reporting was on his handling of his office and things he was doing. I thought that's what the investigative reporter was looking into about him.
Comps Realty had a letter in hand saying that they didn't see any wrongdoing. Like I said, to me, that was just weird. And again, I will get into why this is not just about mail. I think Detective Jackie said, "Oh, this is about mailings." No, it's way worse than that, in my opinion. So I told Mr. Wolfson about the situation. You know, he's got these guys who are again from one sale to the next. I mean, we're looking at anywhere again close to 50%. You know, he's like, "Well, yeah, okay." Like, and I asked him, "Can you do an investigation?" He said, "Well, that's not our department. I mean, we don't do investigations." Because I thought, well.
So he's going to blame other people, talk about how wrong this was. I think he's going to try to get something into evidence. I want to watch his behavior when he's waiting to see if something's going to come in or not.
The AG does investigations. Maybe the DA does too. He said, "No, we don't do that, but I know someone who can help you." There's this guy I know in public correction, Derek Jett, and I'll put you in touch with him. Mr. Jappy, I don't know if it was a day or two later, calls me. We discuss the case on the phone. We set up a meeting. I go down there with the package with all of my materials. And I actually included a letter to him with that, a letter in that kind of highlighted some of the concerns. And so I'd like to share J1. So there's a letter to Detective Jappy.
Camera, you want to approach?
He's just very concerned to see, like, is it going to get in? Is it not? Because in his mind, I think he's thought in his mind how this is going to play out. And
J1 has been admitted.
Thank you. And so one of the things that I had noted in this letter, and again, it's a 4-page letter, like I said, getting into detail about what had been going on and what, I guess you'll see it. But one of the issues.
so this testimony, because he's just going to go on and on about the conspiracy theory and who he thinks is out to get him. He's actually going to make a statement that he thinks one of the people that testified was like paid to give false testimony. Like he's going to say some stuff.
And I would like to, if I could, share L1.
So he has to wait for it to be admitted.
Sure, of course.
Thank you.
Do you want to, are you offering it?
Yes, please.
Okay, L1 is admitted.
Thank you. And so the document here again is Rita Reed's campaign contribution report from the Nevada Secretary of State. And I'm turning to, you know what?
He just admitted the wrong thing, and they're going to have to work that out.
I think we might have to admit a different exhibit for another day. My apologies, but this is report number 1, and the contributions from Compass Realty and Defendant are on report number 2. So my apologies. So
And that's where I don't know if that was intentional or if that was an accident. I do not know. I would think I don't know. So I told y'all sometimes we'll watch these things and I won't be completely sure. He protects his ego so much. If he truly made a mistake, I don't know that he would show distress because he's so self-protective that in his mind, he's already been like, "Oh, I'm gonna make this work out down the road." Like, he thinks he's 10 steps ahead of everyone, but to me, he's overstating or he might overstate or he might overthink his worth, importance, all of that. It's just yes. Denny Don. I think he's saying the wrong thing on purpose. He's smarter than we think and that he's up to something. I I just this is a lot.
I mean, it's
And so-
admitted. That's just not the document you want.
that's correct. So if you would note that we're going to be looking at what
But, like, why should the jury be noting like, you're a witness that should be up here testifying. Why are you trying to make the jury do work to follow this very convoluted story that you're saying?
when I bring that back tomorrow, we'll be looking at report number 2 that has those contributions.
Oh my gosh. And so there were other things. I like bringing up when times happen that he has to stop. Let's see. Let's see what happened before this.
We were, she was concerned, and she asked us to intervene. So I filed a petition, and we had a hearing. I believe it was on June 29th of 2022, and I'd like to see if we could play the hearing video from that hearing. And this is
Maybe approach on this one.
Sure.
So he's going to ask to try to get a hearing video in, and they are going to have that discussion another day. I don't think he likes that, but we'll see.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to have the jury see that video. Yes. I'd like to go ahead and then, if I may, share the Rajab Abdul inventory. And that is, M1, sorry.
And I don't know how he thought this was going to go. So Zoe, what you took from his story was that he figured out how others were gaming the system, exploiting loopholes, and he wanted to stop them? Huh, possibly. I don't know. Like, this is just
And this is,
And so I want to skip ahead to when the judge has to talk with him about opinions. Excuse me, sorry. Okay, let's just see what's happening here.
those issues. May I share V2? This is an email from me to Detective Jabby. I can't recall the date, but it was in regard to the estate of Rajab Abdul.
I'll approach you with this.
The poor jury.
Thank you. And so this is actually to Derek Jabby and one of the other folks that was on his detail. This is hello, gentlemen. I'm not sure if you all had a chance to catch the hearing. I will get the video for you. Also, I'm not sure if you had a chance to read the response. It had an appraisal with the kitchen torn out. Today, Deborah Erbach testified the photos of the house in the appraisal were not representative of how she had left the house. She had cleaned the house before she had returned home.
Yeah, so this part is just his suspicions and allegations about somebody else. Okay, I think this is the part where the judge is going to be like, you You are supposed to be talking about the facts.
about what Detective Jeffy did. I believe there's some type of compensation to him for all this. So I'm a
I would
witness.
just ask you to move on.
Sure, absolutely. And again, like
He's not going to move on. I'm going to rewind this one a little bit because he alleges that somebody got paid to say and do things inappropriate. He's accusing somebody of a crime, pretty sure.
because that's, in my opinion, that's clearly not what this was about.
Objection.
This is my opinion. Okay. So personally, I believe it's likely that, based on what I'm going to discuss later about what Detective Jeffy did, I believe there's some type of compensation to him for all this. So I'm a
And I think he liked that he was able to get that part in. He was able to sneak in something that I don't think the lawyer couldn't have tried to ask a question in a way. So that's where I personally feel like he wanted to do narrative so that he could tell things and do things the way he wanted to do and say things. Those are just my personal thoughts.
I'm a
I would
witness.
just ask you to move on.
Sure, absolutely. And again, like I said before, I can have my opinions, right? And it's up to you to decide. I'm not the lawyer up here.
Uh-huh.
And he truly thinks he's doing nothing wrong and that he has every right to do and say things exactly the way he's doing and saying things. And that it's everybody else's problem.
Ask you to limit your testimony to your personal knowledge and the facts because your opinions are not really relevant. And so I would ask you your personal knowledge and things that you observe and any inferences and arguments that can be made, your attorneys will be able to make those at the end.
And if Your Honor, if you don't mind, for clarification's sake, again,
For clarification's sake, Your Honor, you just said something I don't like. Could I try to manipulate you to get you to let me do what I want? That, like, for clarification's sake, no, the judge was clear. The judge was very clear with what she said, and now he's gonna try to say, "I don't like that. This is how I think I should be able to testify." And no, sir, you can't. You can't do the things you're trying to do.
when Zach Schilling was giving his opinion
Well, it's not
about
appropriate,
circumstances.
But if you want to have a hearing at the end of the day, that's fine too. But again, I would just ask that you limit it to the facts and your personal knowledge and any of your observations.
So if I have a particular opinion on some of the testimony, can I share that?
Your opinions are not relevant at this time.
He asked so many times, like, but I want to give my opinions. He gave his opinion. Why can't I give my opinion? Sir, he was an expert witness. Expert witnesses can give their opinion. You are a fact witness. Fact witnesses can't give opinions. They can't. She set a very clear boundary. I don't think he's going to abide by it. I think he's going to continue to push that boundary because he knows that even if they object and they say, strike that from the record, he's already got it out there. He's already said it. Oh. But the defense is doing a good job managing their emotions. I think they kind of knew what to expect. He had done prison interviews that kind of gave you a look into how this might go. And at one point he was representing himself, and I'm sure the prosecution had to deal with him. And if I said defense, I meant prosecution. The prosecution is managing their emotions well during all this.
So again, I would ask you to limit your testimony to facts and observations that you make.
And then according to the judge's counsel, those are matters that can be argued in closing.
He does not like that. That little sigh was, this isn't fair. I should be able. No, sir, you can't. You can't do that.
So the attorney for Compass Realty began to stonewall me after the hearing, because what happened during the hearing is that I was granted this authority to engage investigations against them. The judge you'll see what the judge decided about the situation. Yeah, I think that they had a lot to worry about. And that was June 29th that hearing occurred. So, but after that hearing, there still has to be a paper order that is entered, that is filed in order to grant the power that was actually given during the hearing, right? So you got to have that written order in hand in order to act.
And he's going to make allegations that like they supported his opposition. Okay, I think he's going to ask, I don't know. So we'll just watch.
I had to basically, as part of the process, you have to send the order to the other attorney, and you all have to try to agree to the terms of the order, and both sides sign it if they agree upon it. The attorney for Compass Realty just would not, and things got delayed. And then finally, the order got filed. It was on, I believe, August 29th. My apologies, but I do have the order that I drafted in the estate of Rajab Abdul that I'd like to share as N1.
And is Nancy?
N as in Nancy. Filed on August 31st, 2022.
So he's going to have his thoughts. I was going to try to see. So he's going to try to explain. So at one point, because this was something that somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, he's going to try to say that his daughter didn't like the school lunch. And so he was cooking, he was chopping chicken for chicken fried rice or something, that he injured himself cooking a meal for his daughter. But the things he says don't fit the evidence for me personally. For me personally, it doesn't fit it.
And
all right. Okay. I like that face he just made because I want to see what happened. Let's play. He's probably trying to get something in.
Case document, but I have 01. Okay, so at this time, 01 is not admitted, and we can't find the other document, but I think at the end of the day, after the jury is excused, we can go further into that.
okay. Well, so Attorney McMahon had provided an interview, and in it, I guess I can speak to, I'm hoping I can speak to my personal knowledge at least on it. I understand that she had alleged that.
Objection, hearsay.
You can't go into any hearsay or what somebody else said.
Okay, well, supposedly I had requested a commission from Kimberly, and
Objection, hearsay?
Okay, let's go back to that face. Let me see if I can get the pause.
and
Okay. So his emotions remind me of, so me personally, okay, this is my personal thoughts. They remind me of a toddler trying to get away with something, or like a preteen, just extremely emotionally immature. Like, we see what you're doing. You're not getting away with anything. And I think he thinks he is. I think he thinks he's winning. He might have felt good about this testimony. I don't feel like it went well. But he might have felt good about this.
Objection, hearsay?
And I believe he's referring to the testimony that had been elicited from Detective Jackson, his cross-examination.
Okay, so you could, I mean, if that's what you're talking about, you can just offer whatever relevant testimony you have.
so, it was claimed by, that I asked her for commissions and, or for a referral fee, which.
I bet you that's true. I bet you that's true. So sometimes what liars do is they'll like, I bet you that part's true. I have a feeling that part's true. Just my personal thoughts. Ugh.
Would have allegedly been in March of 2019. But she ended up making a claim that
Objection hearsay.
so She- she-
I think she said.
so she was interviewed. I guess you can do the math. She was interviewed by Detective Jappy 3.5 years later on that supposed issue.
That doesn't mean that it wasn't true, sir. Like all of this is just that part seemed I think he was denying something that was actually true. That's just how I feel.
So, I think that, and also at the time, I only had 4 months left on my office, right? So why would, personally, I'm not sure why someone would wait 3.5 years to make a claim.
Proper opinion.
Okay, sure. Okay, Your Honor. That's okay. I'll go on. So, and so Detective Jappy obtained the search warrant into me, being able to now from that point forward track me starting August 17th. And it seems to, at least until September 7th, right? I had requested all the surveillance logs when I was representing myself. And originally I'd received only 3
Objection.
from that whole time.
Objection.
Sure.
I'm not sure why that would be relevant, so I'm going to sustain the relevance objection at this point.
Sure. Well, and I guess this goes to a comment that Detective Jappy had made, Your Honor. Detective Jappy had said that they
The
performed.
objection was
Oh,
sustained.
okay, but
So, but if you
but
want to take it up at the end of the day, I'm happy to.
I'm sorry. I was just going to explain. Okay. So can I speak about what he had said?
Hearsay.
I mean, as far as okay, well,
But he doesn't show the same emotional escalations that somebody like Ali Abulaban, who is just completely dysregulated. Like he does seem when he doesn't necessarily get his way, because I think he thinks he's smarter than everybody else and he can still talk his way out of this. I think that's what keeps him calm during this.
I mean, I thought that if it was testified in court, that I could repeat his testimony in court. Is that still hearsay?
Well, generally, I don't like witnesses to say, this is what another witness said.
Sure,
I mean, the jury will be the ones to determine what the testimony was, but if you have something to add based on his testimony.
exactly
how about that?
right. So in order to provide context for what I want to provide next, I just have to remind them of what his testimony was. That's all. Is that
Well,
okay?
that's exactly what I don't allow.
And the tone he's using, like, I just wanna remind them about what he said so that then but also, are you really gonna say what he said, or are you gonna say what you want them to remember? And that's why judges don't allow witnesses to restate other people's testimony because they can say it wrong, in a way to impact their own testimony.
Witnesses to do is tell the jury what another witness testified to. You could say generally, but it's not appropriate to inform the jury what another witness testified to, unless you have a transcript of that testimony.
All right, so what I'll do then is I will ask if we could share now. So it came to my attention that from reviewing the file into the investigation into Compass Realty, that Cynthia Sauerland was surveilled 2 days in a row. And so
And he tries to say things that are these big slam dunks that just aren't the slam dunks that I think he really wants them to be. Now, he's gonna talk about that whole finger thing. We'll play that part.
I think we're going to discuss the situation of the surveillance log later. Is that right? Okay.
That is correct, based on the
Okay. So you heard that a search warrant was obtained and I got pulled over.
So the back and forth with the judge is he's introducing exhibits during his testimony that haven't been admitted yet because he's laying the foundation for why those exhibits should or shouldn't be entered. Because if his defense attorney was um because some of these exhibits so the prosecution doesn't know exactly which exhibit it's going to be, so they're having to pause every time he enters an exhibit. They're just having to pause. So this is a unique situation where the defendant is giving a narrative testimony, and that's why I'm not a lawyer, but like, yeah, the finger thing is so weird, So weird. I do think he is getting, like, slightly agitated that he's not getting his way, but it's not explosive like Ali Abulaban, where he was just like, "Judge, but, like, what if she asked me a question that I don't like?" Like, he legit was like, "I don't like that question. I shouldn't have to answer a question I don't like." Like, he and so to me, I can tell he's getting frustrated, but he is still managing it, I think, as much as he can.
Early in the morning on September 7th, 2022, the officers came at me with their guns drawn, yelling at me. And I was basically coming from dropping off my stepson at school, getting ready to go home to pick up one of my other daughters and then take her to school. And so they just, out of nowhere, 3 police cars just run up on me from the back, and I just scared. I had no idea what was going on. I mean, they basically yell at me to just stand. I can't remember exactly what they said, but they're yelling at me. They patted me down. They handcuffed me. They threw me in the back of a patrol car. I asked them what I did. I asked them, can I call somebody? Can I do anything? I mean, I did this for over an hour and a half. Just tell me what's going on. Tell me what's, I mean, obviously at this point, I had my suspicions because of like the whole, just all that thing. But
That thing.
they wouldn't tell me what was going on. They just left me there. And the whole time my family didn't know where I was.
I missed the finger part. The finger part was back here. Trust me, the finger part was just okay. Let's try to go back to that part. But it was weird. So supposedly he was just cutting. We'll skip it. He was just it doesn't I don't know why he thought that would make more sense. I don't know. Because I feel like now he's just trying to save face to tell the story he wants the jury to believe, his opinion.
As far as I know, my daughter was expected for me to come home and take her to school. I was distraught already by that point. And I believe you've heard how distraught I was about my family and what they were going through at that moment that I could imagine.
Now he's saying he's distraught about his family and what they're going through. I personally feel he was more distraught about himself and getting like caught. Like that's what would make more sense to me. He is finishing his testimony today. Let me see what tomorrow is back to back. So I don't think I'm gonna have time. So the next time we cover this one should be Saturday 1:30 p.m. All right. Thank y'all for joining me. I do need to head out and get ready for my next appointment. I was able to do a collaboration with Simply Said, talking about the Fiona Harvey case. Once that video comes out on his channel, I will share it to mine, or I might do a reaction video, just kind of sharing that link here. I missed his first appearance with the judge. So Lisa said for Robert that his first appearance with the judge, he was fake crying. I wonder if he'll pull that out for the prosecution, because it seems like he has the ability to do that. Because I wonder at what point he might try to bring up some emotion. It's a mess. So the death penalty for the Flanagan trial, there was some interesting testimony about trauma. We will see how long his testimony takes. I would like to cover that part. I'm glad that the family of the victim got just, like, it sounds like they're happy with the outcome of that particular case. This case is like sadistic and ugh. But I would like to cover that part. Phoenix, we all survived. We skipped around a lot. I paused a lot. I can't. But I just like to talk about what some of the things that we might be seeing, what's happening with this potential defendant. I personally see a lot of control and the need to control things, control the narrative, control everything, and then trying to like get away with letting things in that probably shouldn't come in. And he's all like, this wasn't fair and that wasn't fair. And he's over here trying to do things that aren't right either. And juries are smart. And we'll see. Thank y'all again. Bye.